To bind the two kings together and prevent Ethelstan from destroying them both, Constantine gave his daughter in marriage to Olaf Guthfrithson. Her name is never recorded in any surviving chronicle. She exists in the historical record only in this single transaction. Daughter given, alliance sealed. Think about her position for a moment. Her father and her new husband had just led their people into a catastrophic military defeat. Her own brother, or half-brother, may have been one of the princes killed in that blood-soaked field. And now, in the frozen depths of a Scottish winter, she was being sent to the Norse Gael court of Dublin as a guarantee of future cooperation. Her wedding wasn't a celebration of love or even a normal political marriage. It was a grimly pragmatic act of statecraft, a human sacrifice on the altar of survival. She would travel by ship through winter storms to the stronghold of Dublin, a world completely alien to the Gaelic court of Alba. Her purpose was singular: to produce sons who would carry the blood of both dynasties, heirs who could one day claim thrones in both the Gaelic and Norse Gael worlds. She was a living bridge built to connect two battered kingdoms. Her personal feelings, her fears for the future, her grief for her lost kinsmen, none of it mattered. She was the price of the alliance. Her identity was erased, subsumed entirely by her political function. A queen without a name, a peace offering, a pawn sacrificed to save kings. But our final story reveals something different. A story of resistance so subtle, so patient, that it took years to reveal itself. This is the tale of Melkorka, drawn from the Laxdæla saga, composed in the 13th century but preserving social memory from centuries earlier. While it's literature rather than pure chronicle, historians agree it reflects historical realities of the Viking Age. The saga tells of Höskuldur Dala Kolsson, a powerful Icelandic chieftain from the mid-10th century. During a trading expedition to Norway, he attends a great fair where he meets a merchant known as Gilli the Russian, a man who traded on the eastern routes. Gilli has a group of female slaves for sale, but one stands out. She is young, breathtakingly beautiful, but Gilli warns that she is mute. She has never spoken a single word. Höskuldur is fascinated. He buys her, but the price Gilli demands is astronomical. 3 full marks of silver, roughly 600 grams. This was a truly colossal sum, enough to buy a small fleet of ships or a vast estate. To pay this much for a slave, even a beautiful one, was unheard of. Why so expensive? Gilli knew or suspected that she was far more than she appeared. Höskuldur brings her back to his farm in Iceland during the worst winter crossing anyone could remember. She becomes his concubine and, as promised, remains utterly silent. She performs her duties without complaint, but her voice, her past, her very identity remain locked away behind sealed lips. Then she gives birth to a healthy son, whom they name Olaf. Years pass, the boy grows. One day, when Olaf is small enough to still play by streams, Höskuldur is walking near his house when he hears voices. He follows the sound and sees his silent concubine playing with their son by the water. And she is speaking to him, not in Old Norse, the language of her captors, but in a language Höskuldur barely recognizes: Irish Gaelic. Her muteness was never real. It was a long, patient act of resistance, sustained over years. It was the only power she had left in a world that had stolen everything else. In a world that had taken her freedom, her family, her homeland, and her royal status, she refused to give her captors her voice. It was her last sanctuary, the one thing they couldn't force from her. Höskuldur confronts her, and she finally reveals the truth. Her name is Melkorka, and she is the daughter of Myrkjartan, an Irish king. She was captured in a raid at the age of 15, probably during one of those winter raids when frozen ground made it easier to move quickly inland, and sold into the vast Viking slave network that stretched from Dublin to Novgorod. But the story doesn't end in silence and submission. When her son Olaf, later known as Olaf the Peacock, grows up, he is eager to claim his noble heritage. He sails to Ireland, finds his grandfather King Myrkjartan still alive, and is received with honor. He returns to Iceland with immense prestige and wealth, becoming one of the most powerful chieftains on the island. Melkorka's story, while filtered through saga tradition, represents a real historical process. It's the perfect microcosm of the Viking Age. A princess becomes a slave, her identity is forcibly suppressed, but through an act of incredible long-term defiance and strategic silence, she ensures her own royal bloodline not only survives but triumphs in a new land. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was a weapon sharpened by years of patience. These 5 women, the defiant abbess who chose fire over violation, the enslaved queens who vanished into the slave markets, the ransomed nobles who bankrupted their families, the political pawn who became a nameless bridge between kingdoms, and the silent princess who weaponized her voice? These are just fragments. For every woman whose fate was hinted at in a chronicle or saga, there are thousands, tens of thousands whose names and stories are gone forever, lost to the winter winds of history. For 1,000 years, we've been told the story of the Viking Age through the eyes of the men who fought it, the warriors, the kings, the explorers. But now, science is giving a voice to the women who were its currency, its collateral damage, its unwilling architects of a new world. In 2018, a landmark genetic study published in the journal Cell sequenced the genomes of hundreds of ancient remains from across Europe from the Viking era. The data confirmed what smaller studies had suggested for years, but now on a massive, undeniable scale. The Viking expansion was a profoundly gender-biased event. The genetic markers for paternal lineages, the Y chromosomes passed from father to son, show a clear exodus of men from Scandinavia outward into England, Ireland, Russia, and the North Atlantic. These are the warriors, the traders, the settlers we read about in sagas. But the maternal lineages, the mitochondrial DNA passed from mother to child, tell a completely different story. In the founding population of Iceland, the paternal DNA is overwhelmingly Scandinavian, exactly as expected. But the maternal DNA? Over 60% comes from the British Isles, primarily from what is now Ireland and Scotland. This is not the genetic signature of peaceful family migration. It is the indelible biological proof of a systematic process of conquest, capture, and forced resettlement. It is the genetic echo of those 200 ships returning to Dublin, laden with human cargo. It is the legacy of Melkorka multiplied by 10,000 nameless women. For a millennium, the sagas have recorded the names of the fathers who sailed west, seeking land and glory. But the DNA now reveals the silent history of the mothers who were taken, traded, torn from their homes in winter raids, and forced to build a new world in the frozen north. Their individual stories are lost to the darkness of history, but their collective truth is written in the very blood of nations.